Well, the tourism sector has been dealt the cruelest blow by COVID-19. But set in the hills in the beautiful Piranoa in South Wairarapa, many tourists every year head to get a taste of how their food is produced and stay on farm at Palliser Ridge, where Lisa and Kurt Portas farm in their equity partnership. Joining me now is Lisa to discuss the effects of the shutdown on their agri-tourism operation, as well as taking the opportunity, why not, to discuss her Kelloggs report on how New Zealand food producers can navigate their narrative. But firstly, Lisa, let's set the scene for the viewers and listeners. Your role as an extension manager, I liked that, to create this diverse business that you have at Palliser Ridge.
Yeah. Hey, so the expansion manager, that was may have been a bit of a made up term at the time. We just decided that that's anything that didn't fall under Kurt's role of the core business fell under here. So it's a bit of a mixed bag to begin with. But now it's all about looking after anything that's not that core business of sheep and beef. So that for us includes some on-farm tourism, some accommodation, and also any traceable products. So we send out honey and lamb, and a range of wool, Romney lamb's wool, and send that out with a bit of a backstory to it. And then I get to look after any marketing and try and make it as successful as possible.
Kurt's quite the model too. I have interviewed him in the past about these lamb's wool suits.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so that's he's been given his fair lot of grief for that at the rugby club and down in the valley, as you can imagine. But look, so neat to know that, over in the UK at Marks and Spencer, that they're hearing about New Zealand wool, and I guess seeing someone who's looking after the sheep and understands that welfare side. So that was where a lot of the Marks and Spencer side came with Wools of New Zealand, was all about the responsible wool standard and just all the good things that New Zealand sheep and beef farmers are doing, and how customers can feel really good about supporting that product.
And those customers getting the opportunity to stay at Palliser Ridge and understand the uniqueness of our food and fibre production, how crucial is that you can see the development of their knowledge and the narrative, like you say, of that story?
Yeah, it's a really, we get a real kind of mixed bag of people who come and stay. You've kind of got a lot of people who want to come in and get a taste of what we have every day, and that's that, being away from the city and being back to nature and just having a bit of that quiet time. So some of the guests we don't see, but the other half of them who really want to come and immerse themselves and kind of do a bit of a day in the life of, or come and talk to us about what day-to-day life is like for us. And quite often they've got some questions around maybe something they've seen on the news or something along those lines, and it's always really satisfying to be able to show them and explain to them firsthand, exactly what we're doing here and that we are proud of it, and some of the things they're hearing maybe aren't quite 100% sometimes.
So farming is obviously deemed an essential service, but there's a lot of products and services that Palliser Ridge can't operate at the moment, and one of them being tourism. How much is it affecting your business?
Yeah, look, it's a hard one. We're all about, playing by the rules and making sure that we all do our part to get rid of COVID-19 here. So, look, we've taken heaps of precautions on the farm, but for the expansion side, it was basically stopped in its tracks overnight, particularly the tourism, and that's a real shame. But look, we've had a really good response for the kind of dozen to 15 people who were staying during that 4-week now lockdown period. We've been able to move them, either to other dates or let them hold it in a credit so that they can come and stay again. And the only real cancellations have been those international guests who obviously have a lot of uncertainty, whereas a lot of our market, particularly for what we're doing, has been urban New Zealand, who thankfully are still being quite supportive as this kind of plays out.
Let's jump into your wonderful Kelloggs report that you can all have a read if you go to ruralleaders.co.nz. Farmer storytelling. It's something that we constantly, like a bit of a broken record now, Lisa, need to tell our story better. But how?
Yeah, it's such a good question. And when I was looking at the topic, I thought, man, this has this been done to a death? We're hearing this all the time. But where I wanted to come at it from was, we've got a lot of amazing marketing. We've got a lot of fantastic kind of bodies that can give us a hand with getting our New Zealand story out there. But sometimes, and particularly when I was doing Kelloggs, it was when there was a lot of regulation coming through to the ag sector, which doesn't show a lot of signs of stopping. But, that's something that made people want to say, look, I actually have something to say about this, and what you're saying about my business isn't true, or I want to influence some of these decisions. And so what I was looking to try and research was, what are the basics of getting some of these stories out and some of this knowledge out, and sharing what it is that we're doing on farms, so that Joe Blogg's farmer who wants to weigh in and hasn't touched Facebook before, or hasn't done any marketing, can really understand the best way to communicate their point.
What do you think about us moving from storytellers to truthtellers?
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the most interesting parts of probably the beginning of my project, was defining what a storyteller was, and just really moving away from that concept that being a storyteller comes with connotations of kind of maybe making the truth stretch, or that kind of thing. So it's really about just sharing knowledge and sharing experiences, and so that people can understand what's happening. So I think it's that sharing knowledge piece. When I think about if I thought about your role, or any of your fantastic guests from last night, I don't know completely what it is they do. I might think that I know, but I don't completely know what they do day in, day out. And I think it's important to remember that urban New Zealand, or whoever else in New Zealand who aren't on farm with us every day, probably don't understand our role either.
And being a part of the Open Farms Day we had, which actually wasn't that long ago, how much can happen in such a short amount of time. The ability to experience teaches us so much, and gives us that framework to learn the knowledge in a really busy information overload world that we're in, to take the time to understand. That must be one of the most rewarding things for you to extend and expand Palliser Ridge's sheep and beef farming operation into tourism.
Definitely. It's been something that we've been doing on farm and been really proud of, and I think a lot of horticulture sector you've had a family friend, or you've shared these experiences with people. And I think when we can be face to face with people, we get that kind of common ground and that common interest, and we can really talk about some of these things and get on the same page. And I just think Open Farms particularly was invaluable for that. Just the amount of questions we fielded that day, but they were awesome. It was really neat to have people leave, as having a really good understanding of what we do, and feeling really proud of what we do. So that was what was the best part for us, I think. And also some of the things we enjoy about our tourism arm of the business as well.
It's quite scary that our borders may be in lockdown for a lot longer than the domestic lockdown. Lisa, what would your advice be to farmers watching that have always had an interest in getting into agritourism, but probably put off now because of the business opportunity being so far away? And how can we sort of pre-plan that when we do open our borders, we're in a better position to be ready to tell our story through on-farm experience?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, firstly, my hope is that the Open Farms continues, and that becomes not just only a New Zealand kind of annual day, but that any tourists in our areas on those days are really hearing about it and coming along to that too. But I think, this next 4 weeks, particularly for myself, I'm kind of, there's all the kind of come down from going into lockdown, and then what do you do next? And I think it's a neat time to just revisit things and look at our own back doorstep. We've got a lot of, domestic tourism that I think, excuse me, for us has been really successful. A lot of our accommodation visitors are from Wellington. We're about an hour and a half from the capital, so that's been really helpful. And also we've had a real range of New Zealanders come to the farm. So I think while there's a massive role to play for the international tourism market, we can feel pretty confident that New Zealanders are hearing the message that when this is over, we need to get out and support each other. And, and farmers are doing a fantastic job of holding up these, getting some stuff to the supermarkets and really playing a vital role. I'd like to think that we'll see some of this, come back, and if we have these tourism ventures ready, that the rest of New Zealand will come to the party and really support us.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us, especially as a mum with some rugrats running around. I'm sure. How are they coping with it being locked inside and self-isolating?
Yeah, they're not too bad. They are. Our boys are 4 and 7, and we've had a lot of comments saying, how fantastic, because they can join you on the farm. But unfortunately, these two just don't understand the concept of self-isolating. And if they saw one of our team, would not hesitate to go and see them. So, yeah, so they're at home with mum, and there's a lot of colouring in and Legos and triathlon time trials going on around here. So, yeah, we'll keep at it. They're doing pretty well.
Fantastic. That's Lisa Portas from Palliser Ridge in the Wairarapa joining us there to talk about the effects of COVID-19 on their agri-tourism business. I actually just had an idea while speaking to Lisa. When we get out of lockdown, I'm going to trip around as much of these amazing farm stays as possible in every weekend that I can. Please, I'd love to hear your comments below, your favourite on-farm stay accommodation. I want to get all your ideas and places to go. I've already jacked up to see the Craws on Banks Peninsula. I'm definitely going to come and see the Portases at Palliser Ridge. But yeah, give me your ideas on places that I can stay. Glamping on farms, even the old shearers' quarters, musterers' huts. I can rough anything. So thank you so much, Lisa, for taking the time.
This is Sarah's Country.